Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome to a pretty cool episode of Yammy Noob. As you might have noticed, we've got a different bike here today. It's the brand spanking new Yamaha MT-03. So what is the MT-03? Well, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I started off my motorcycling journey on a Yamaha R3, their small displacement sport bike, fully fared. We recently did a second generation as a giveaway bike last year in 2019, and this is Yamaha's answer to something like the Z400, to the KTM Duke 390, which, as a lot of you guys know, we have one of those in our garage as well, so we will definitely be making comparisons to this motorcycle from the KTM Duke 390. Man, I do that a lot with the Duke and the RC. So let's run over some specs on this motorcycle really quick. And also, big shout out to Yamaha for hooking it up with me for this press bike. I'm going to have this thing for a couple weeks, which is pretty awesome. We're going to run it through some tests, have some fun with it, goof around with it, and have a good time with it. It's a great looking little motorcycle. Really welcome addition to Yamaha's lineup and to the general kind of beginner bike lineup overall. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with this bike, but just as you guys know, this is not a giveaway motorcycle. This is a press bike provided by Yamaha, which we will have in the fleet for a little bit. So let's walk through it really fast. So basically, keen observers will be able to tell that this motorcycle is basically a Yamaha R3. Not a whole lot has changed. The frame is exactly the same. Swing arm is the same. Rear shock is the same. Engine is exactly the same. Gearing is the same. The only couple of things that have changed, even the tail section is the same as you guys see over here. This is the same Yamaha R3 tail section right there. The only things that have changed are these new bars, which are a little bit higher and further back to provide a more comfortable rider triangle. Also, hello, second camera, what's up? The other things that have changed also is the front suspension is a little bit softer than the R3. This was done because of that increase in triangle here, trying to make it more streetable, trying to make it more comfortable for the everyday rider, so that's what they've gone with as well. And the gas tank. So this gas tank is a little bit different from the Yamaha R3s. It's a little more fat and wide, kind of keeping in line with that MT line of bikes. And I gotta say, I think in this fluo ice red combination, it's a sharp looking bike. The other big thing that we see here, the Yamaha's finally doing, and it makes me so dang happy. Look at these turn signals, guys. Look at them. Proper blinky turn signals. No more of that ugly incandescent crap. It's got these cool little, I guess like tiny baby alien eyeball slit things happening. It's Yamaha's new MT design language kind of happening there with the bike. So definitely a unique look. I think polarizing to some people, but I think overall a pretty good looking motorcycle. So this is Yamaha's answer to the Z400, the Duke 390, those sorts of bikes. But let's jump on it and take it for a ride, shall we? Today we're just going to be doing some nice twisties with it, a couple downtown sections with it, just carving it up and having a good time with this bike. Let's get it started up, shall we? Put it in neutral here. This motorcycle is equipped with ABS, as you guys can see there. That is a standard feature on this bike. Pretty cool stuff. The gauge cluster is exactly the same as the second generation R3, so you're getting that, I guess, regular LCD flat look onto there. Definitely not as nice as some other options in the segment, but we will save that for our detailed comparison video with this bike with the other ones we have in the garage. So without further ado, let's get this thing on the road and see what it's all about. Taking off with the MT-03 here, the very first thing you notice about it is, the design language really comes across. This is a true MT bike in every sense of the word. This feels really similar to the MT-09, MT-10 kind of bikes. They're all really cohesive now. And what's interesting is, even though the frame and the motor is exactly the same as the R3, what that really comes down to for how these MT bikes feel is, one, it's Yamaha's build quality, which is always really nice, but the way they build it too just feels lightweight, playful. And looking down at the cockpit here, you see that kind of MT design language, the shorter, stumpier tank, the bars. I just came off an MT-10 not too long ago, and this to me feels like a little tiny baby MT-10, which is super cool. The MT-10 also features an LCD gauge cluster like this bike as well, so it doesn't feel too dissimilar. zingy little 321cc mill from that R3 parallel twin makes about 45, 44 horsepower, something like that. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. It is A2 compliant, so it's definitely not above 48 horsepower. I believe it makes right under that amount. And, you know, decent amount of torque from it. You know, not as punchy as some of the other offerings in the class, but that's not really why you buy this bike, I don't think. Really light and nimble and flickable. All that same DNA from the R3 is still here because it is the same engine and same frame. So from the saddle, boy, it feels a lot like an R3, but in a package that's a little more naked, a little more upright. And Yamaha does need to get this right, because for a lot of folks, something like this is their entry point into motorcycling. I think about someone like myself, for example. If something like the MT-03 was available instead of something like the Yamaha R3, you know, maybe I would have gotten it instead. I don't know. It is a cool looking little motorcycle, and it does give a lot of those kind of, you know, Transformers, Alien, you know, kind of more alternative vibes than some of the other options. I think when you compare something like this to the Z400, for example, this has a lot more kind of character and pizzazz than a Z400, just from an aesthetics perspective. And aesthetics are important, guys. Like, a lot of people buy bikes because of the way they look. I mean, I literally bought my Desert Sled because of the way it looked. I just fell in love with it. Motorcycles are very emotional purchases, so even though this is a little bit down on torque, a little bit down on power over the Z400, I don't think that matters too much if you're considering this as your first motorcycle. You want something to be happy with, you want something that you're proud with. So we're getting on the highway here, doing a little bit of highway stints with the MT-03 just to see what it's like. We're in 5th gear right now, and I'm going to purposely keep it in 5th because 5th and 6th are actually overdrive gears for this motorcycle. So I'm going to try to merge into traffic here, opening it up. No issue getting into traffic over here. We're going to get one lane over, shift it up into 6th. We're doing 70 miles per hour. No issues at all. So I just want to drive that point home, guys, that these smaller bikes, I'm about 175 pounds, 6 foot tall, human, adult, male, pretty average size. I'm certainly not on the smaller size, and this gets up to speed just fine. So that's a big thing to consider. Also, if you're even lighter weight than I am, let's say you're a woman who's like 5'4", 120 pounds, this is going to move plenty fast for you, and it also has a seat height that is very appropriate for those kinds of riders. It says the lowest seat height out of all the different small displacement nakeds, if I remember correctly. So that makes it really, really approachable and easy to ride for most people. This is a great bike so far, man. But we're going to go take it out in the twisties and see how it does when you chuck it through some corners. So let's go and do that. Alrighty, guys, just like that, through the power of meme magic, we are now on one of my favorite twisty paved roads here in Austin. This is Lime Creek Road. This is a road that runs along part of Lake Travis here and goes through the hills and stuff. It's a good test for a bike like this. Nice little naked sport bike, small displacement, always fun. As you'll see here, it's pretty straight until we start getting into the hills, and then it starts tightening up. It's got a couple nice sharp decreasing radius turns, a couple nice sweepers. It's a great spot to test a motorcycle, and really should be a good time. As you guys will tell, I switched up the angle on the front camera because I realized that I could put it right there in the middle, and so that's probably going to look better. Hopefully it looks better. We will see. The one thing that it's causing it to do is I can't see the instrument cluster at all. So we are operating on pure feel right now. Pure analog, raw, old school motorcycling right here, guys. No speed, no gear, no tachometer barely. Let's just hope for the best. I'm sure it'll be fine. We're not going to be going 10/10 here on Lime Creek Road. So, gut impressions on the MT-03. I just came up Lime Creek Road with it. You know, it's still got the same Yamaha front brake feel from the R3, which is not great. So that basically gives you a very wooden, very weak feeling brake. Not exactly my favorite thing in the world. And that just, you know, for a new rider, I don't think it's going to cause any problems. I think, you know, you're going to definitely respect the machine. You're not going to be trailing it hard in any corners on your first, you know, 6 months of riding. But I think that's something to keep in mind as you learn and progress with this motorcycle, is that front brake is definitely not a normal feeling on this bike. It is quite wooden. It just doesn't really feel quite right. So that is something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind as well is the rider triangle is pretty small on this motorcycle, so it's quite narrow, quite small, and so, you know, even though the motorcycle itself, the dimensions are actually pretty tiny, it also feels really small as well to kind of flip it into corners. So we'll come up here on this right here, drop it down to third, drop it down to second here for this one. At least I think I'm in second. I probably am. Definitely in second. So yeah, it's an easy bike to get along with. Plenty of fun to be had for a beginner, I think. I think the big thing that the MT-03 does really, really well is this 321cc engine. It zings up to about 12,500 RPM, and that gives it a pretty cool kind of motorsports feel to it. It's not really something you expect out of a little bike, but it revs up really nice. Makes you want to just really rev it out and have a good time with it. But I will say, it is kind of anachronistic to the sort of naked bike ethos. When you're on a naked bike, you expect low-down torque and you expect, you know, bottom-end grunt, and this thing doesn't really have that. So in that way, maybe it's more similar to like an FZR 600 from the mid-2000s. It just, you know, you got to work for it. You got to rev it out a little bit. It's definitely not a normal kind of naked bike like the FZ07, the SV650, and you know, that definitely comes with the territory of being a smaller bike. Man, this Molly Maid is kind of getting it. Front end feel is really good for this category of bike. These Dunlop Sportmax tires are a very welcome change over the old bias plies that came on the first generation R3. So you definitely have a lot more confidence in the front end when you're whipping it through a corner, especially when you're trailing it in a little bit. Even though that front brake feel isn't very good, as you push the weight towards the front of the bike, you feel that front end really grip in and do what it needs to do. So that's a very welcome addition. It's interesting because of this bike's ergonomics, I can't really tell if I should ride it like this, like a sport bike, and keep my elbows down and really use my you know, just the light weight on the bars, or if I want to get my arms up like this and just kind of, you know, really wrestle it around these corners like a motard or something. Either way, it seems like you can ride it, you know, whatever way you prefer. For me personally, I like riding it more like a sport bike and getting a little more leaned over, closer to the mirror here, and kind of flipping it in as needed. Making a quick courteous pass there because I do want to see what the MT-03 can do. But yeah, it's really easy to get over on the side of the tire. Doesn't really complain too much. That softer front end over the R3, I can definitely feel that difference there. Down 2 gears here, let's see. All right, take it easy right there. Lime Creek's always got some gravel and debris. Carry it through 4th here, keep our weight on the outside peg, drop it down a gear. Power out when you see the straight right here. 25 mile per hour corner. Keep it in 3rd, let's see about this torque. Yeah, you know, I wouldn't say it's anemic, but it's certainly not the torquiest thing in the world. You got to work for it a little bit, though, that's for sure. That's typical of the R3's engine. I remember when we had our giveaway R3 last year, you just got to work for this power a little bit more than normal. But yeah, really fun bike to take through at a 7/10 kind of pace. I'd say once you start approaching 8/10 and maybe you want to take this thing out to a track day, I think you're going to start to notice it falls apart pretty quick. Between the very, very wooden brake feeling and the softer front end over the regular R3, I think if you are thinking about doing track days as a beginner rider, you already know you want to go down that route, this might not be the best option. You probably should look at the R3 over the MT-03 if you want to do at least one track day before you jump onto your bigger bike. And this is not a great option. There are definitely better, smaller displacement options that are more track ready. I'm thinking, you know, the Ninja 400, the RC390, that'll definitely be more of your bag if that's what you're trying to do with your bike. I will say from an aesthetics perspective as well, I do find the front headlight to be just, I think it's too small, which is a weird thing to say, but it looks disproportionate to the rest of the motorcycle from a purely aesthetic standpoint. So I feel like, you know, they could have maybe given it a bit of a bigger headlight, which is such a weird thing to talk about, but I don't think I've ever had that complaint about any motorcycle. The headlight was too small. What a weird thing to say. I will say this thing catches a lot of looks though, man, in this fluo ice configuration with the red wheels. Boy, it's a real attention-grabbing motorcycle. This might be the cheapest way to snap some necks while you're riding around your local town. All right, now we're getting onto the nice smoother part here of Lime Creek Road. Let's see how she does. Pretty good, you know? More than adequate for a beginner, I think, to have some fun on a twisty road. And keep in mind, guys, if you are getting into this sport bike kind of lifestyle and hobby, I definitely wouldn't recommend taking your MT-03 in the first couple of months out to a road like this. Take your time, practice. You know, I think there's no reason to go and try to set lap records on your local twisty road of your town. And also, I'm a pretty experienced track day rider, so my 7/10 pace is probably a little too advanced for you to keep up. And so, you know, don't think that just because I'm riding this way that you're going to go buy an MT-03 and ride this way as well. It's definitely something to keep in mind. Let me see something here. Yeah, so the R3 doesn't have a slipper clutch because I just banged down a gear to see what the rear would do. Didn't really take it, skidded the rear wheel, so that is something to keep in mind if you are going to purchase this motorcycle. It doesn't have a slipper clutch like some of the other options in the market. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is the MT-03 has the same throttle tube as the Yamaha R3, so this is a bit of a two-sided sword, I guess the word, the double-edged sword is the word I'm looking for, because on the one hand, for a beginner rider, it's super forgiving. It takes a lot of turns to get it to full throttle, but once you're a little more familiar with motorcycling, I think you're going to start to get annoyed with that, the fact that you have to turn, you know, nearly 180 degrees on this throttle tube to get it to be full throttle. Like, look at this over here. This is fully closed. That's fully open. It's a big travel. It's better than the first generation R3, so I think they improved it, but it's still a long throttle tube to go to twist it out to fully open. So just something to keep in mind if you get this motorcycle. Overall though, man, this bike is cool. I think for a first-time rider, super approachable, super friendly, lowest seat height in the segment, which is a big deal for a lot of people. I think folks who are, you know, 5'4", 5'3", can easily flat-foot this motorcycle. Maybe not easily, but can definitely flat-foot this motorcycle and have a good time with it. Really approachable bike to ride. Looks cool, is priced correctly for the market, and I don't think you can go too wrong with it. We will be releasing more detailed comparison videos. As you guys know, we've got our giveaway KTM Duke 390. We have to compare that against this. We might be able to snag a Z400 and compare it against this as well while we have it in the garage. We've got this bike until about mid-April, so we're going to do a lot of content with it. I am going to see if my guy at Yamaha will let me take this thing on track, because that would be a ton of fun. Hopefully I can go out to Harris Hill with it and have some fun, because I don't think it's appropriate to take to Eagles Canyon Raceway. I'm going to be sitting there, you know, trying to make sure that I can rev it out on this back straight for a good 20 seconds or so. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this look into the MT-03, and if you have any questions, leave me down below in the comments. I will try to answer them as much as I can. I believe I covered just about everything that is relevant or pertinent to this motorcycle, but if you feel I missed anything, do leave me a comment down below. I will try to get to your questions if possible. And a more reliable way to get to me is, of course, joining up on yamanoob.co. If you are not familiar, we have a Discord server there, which is basically like a chat room. I'm there every day. It's a much more reliable way to get in touch with me if you haven't signed up for that yet. So thanks again for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to Yamaha for providing me this MT-03 to kind of review and have for a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to have this bike in the garage. It's a shame we can't do any modifications to it, but we might have some fun with it while we have it. So tune in next time. Thanks for watching. See you later.